cloud. Wim, I'm happy to give the floor to you.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. Yeah, first of all, I'm really happy with this webinar that you organized. Some of you heard already a friendly lady called Alexandra saying nice words about Tech Data Belgium. With Alexandra, we're working to develop the business for Dell networking throughout Europe. And I have to say that Tech Data Belgium is doing the highest numbers, the highest results. And I know it's due to a very good team like Tom and Koen behind it on the technical side. So a little bit agenda. I'm going to talk for like 15 minutes about NVMe TCP/IP, what it is, what it's about, why it's great. One of the things, we won't go too much into the technical detail because at the end of the presentation, I will show you how you can learn more and can be more successful in selling it. Then Danny Krieger will take it over, and he will go into the switching portfolio. Normally we don't do it that much, but we felt it's right to do it, so to give you a good understanding of what is the portfolio till the end of this calendar year. And then Danny will go a little bit into breakout technology, and the plan is to conclude this at 12 o'clock with a nice lunch that Carl arranged for all of you, as I have it. Carl is shaking his head, but I think he did his very best, as Belgians are very good in food.
Yeah. I have to correct you, Wim. Not everybody will receive the lunchbox. There was a little game to it. You had to register fast, so it's the first 50 registrations which will have the lunchbox.
Okay, so we'll have to make it up for the other ones. Okay, thanks. Anyway, I'm happy that we have such a massive show up. I want to share a little success we have in the Netherlands. It's a colleague of Carl who arranged that his sales crew would contact a lot of resellers in the Netherlands, and those resellers shared that they are very interested in Dell networking because they would like to sell something different, something more, something innovative, something with a better supply chain. And I know that many of you are struggling with getting the switches received, but we still think we do a better job than many of our competitors. On top, we know that our partners like the new business incentives that we have as Dell. To start a little bit with NVMe, there are basically three categories, and the middle and the right block is basically where we are with Dell and with Dell networking. The middle block is Fibre Channel. This could be now done over TCP as well, and that's the Connectrix product line that we do for Fibre Channel. And at the right side, you see the Dell IP, Dell own technology, which is at the moment supported at PowerStore 2.1. And that's where we will focus on in the 15 minutes of this presentation. I thought to make it simple, I put a few highlights about why Dell IP and why NVMe over TCP is better. So it has more queues and the latency is also a lot less. Why is NVMe important? I share with you a slide that IDC made. And in this slide, you see that fiber channel, traditional fiber channel will sort of stay, and the growth will really come from NVMe, TCP/IP, that is predicted to be really already a significant amount of revenue this calendar year, and obviously almost double in the years after that. What is SmartFabric storage software? SmartFabric storage software is the commercial name that we have for our NVMe implementation. I would say the main highlight from this slide is that we are using standards. So our NVMe proposition is not a proprietary solution. I highlight on this slide a few of the standards so that you know it's also multi-vendor. One thing for traditional fiber channel people is that fiber channel is known for its zoning. It's strong. That's a strong technology aspect, and in the NVMe over TCP solution, we, let's say, substituted an equivalent technology for that, also with zoning. You will hear a lot of new terminology in NVMe over TCP/IP, and one of it is like you will see a centralized discovery controller, which you see here. You will see endpoints, so the naming of endpoints. For traditional fiber channel people, that this is sort of common knowledge, but for IP people, this is a bit new. And so you see in this slide the, let's say a high overview on the terminology. This is more how it looks in, let's say, a bit more holistic. You see an orchestrator, which will be vCenter. So our NVMe TCP/IP implementation integrates with vCenter. It has the, I suppose, well-known OMNI integration. Then you have the IP Fabric, which is Dell IP switches. To be by the book, we only support the 25 gig models and the 100 gig and the 400 gig models of switches, obviously due to performance reasons. And then there is the NVMe centralized discovery controller, which you see here on the left, which is sold to you, or you sell it to your customer as SmartFabric storage software. The technology supports the PowerEdge servers, the 14G and the 15G, and it's at this moment very focused on PowerStore, which, as you know, is a high focus for Dell. I want to share with you a little screenshot on OMI SFS integration, so that you have a little bit a look and feel how it looks, the integration, vSphere client. Then a few on compatibility matrix. Maybe some of you heard that it was supposed to be available already in November, but due to some delay on the VMware side, we just released the product, the solution, last week. PowerFlex and PowerMax will be supported, let's say by May this year. And another thing is that the SmartFabric storage software will support auto discovery by approximately May. So this is an important thing. What are the key advantages? I would say probably the most important is that it's a full Dell solution. So you're not integrating, let's say, PowerStore with third party. It's a full Dell solution, which means that if there is an integration issue, if there is a support issue, if you have a compatibility issue, you are fully covered if you take the full Dell solution and with the Dell switches. Another advantage is that NVMe TCP can be deployed by you as a partner versus Fibre Channel solutions are, let's say, usually sold by ordering Pro Deploy. So then it's more Dell deploying the solution instead of you. Another thing is that NVMe TCP is a modern converged solution, and we all know that converged solutions over time wanted from, let's say, isolated solutions. And I put down a couple of examples, is voice over IP, video over IP. Yeah. There's also a cost saving involved, which means that if you take a converged solution, NVMe TCP, you won't do, or your customer wouldn't have to spend any money on Fibre Channel anymore. On the right side, obviously, this is a total solution validated and supported by Dell, with the entire solution covered by Dell service tax. It means that Dell will troubleshoot with you and the customer directly. How to know more? We will soon, hopefully this week, send out invitations to trainings. So there will be 2 sales sessions scheduled, each 1.5 hours, so one on the 15th of March and one on the 29th of March. And there will be a deep dive, hands-on technical session, both on March 17 and March 31. Why is that important? Because part of, let's say, the solution launch, we will have the Americans from Dell giving this presentation as giving this training as a one-off to bring you all up to speed. So that's an easy way to hook on. In case you are very eager to understand the solution today, on Dell Demo Center, and you see the link above, you have the possibility to go through, let's say, some interactive demo, hands-on, semi-hands-on lab. So it's artificially hands-on lab where you would learn how the solution works. You could do this as a preparation for the technical trainings or the sales trainings. That concludes my presentation, and then I would like to give the stage to Danny. Thank you.
Good afternoon or good morning all, and I'm sharing my screen now, so that should be available. I think that's done.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. So I would like to give you an overview on our switches based on open networking. And as Wim already said, these are the switches that are at least until the last quarter of 2022. That means that it will be available until December. What are the switches and can we expect? Well, I think we have different platforms, and the different platforms that we have are separated in, well, let's say two categories: the access layer and the data center layer. So most likely for the campus environment and for the data center itself. And the first explanation that I will give on the switches, yeah, of course, that will be on the campus side, because that's a lot of items. So within the campus side, we have four different families, and the different families, they are more based on the environment of the customers, the usage of the customers, but also based on the new technology that is upcoming today, like the Wi-Fi 6, but also IoT, video cameras, everything that you would like to connect to your network. So looking at the first layer that we have, and this is the only 8-port switch that we have in the low category. In a low category, that means it's a layer 2 device. It's a typical one. It's based with 8 ports of Power over Ethernet, based on the Power over Ethernet with 30 watts in total, but it has a power budget of 137 watts. So this is a small one that you can use on the desk, under the desk in a small environments, with some uplinks for the switch, but it is based on the uplinks based on 1 gig, not based on 10 gig, but based on 1 gig. The second in line is the N1500. That's a layer 3 light environment. This one is based on the Broadcom ASICs and the CPU environment, but also there are 2 different flavors. Well, different flavors in this case, it's the 24 ports and 48 ports, and both with or without the Power over Ethernet environment. A very nice to know is that this one has 4 ports for uplinking for 10 gig, but 2 ports will be used or can be used for stacking. And the stacking environment is up to 4 switches. So this is a small stacking environment, but still you can use 192 ports for a stacking environment. So there are the small floors or the small environment or a large environment. It really depends on how you will have the connections. A restriction on this one, it's supporting 512 VLANs. Yes, it's still supporting the VLANs numbers from 1 to 4000, but you have only 512 VLANs that is supported on the switches that you can have to uplink them to the other parts. There's my knop. Okay. Nice part of the N1500, but also on the other switches, is that they are clean air environment, or environment where is no restrictions on the air conditions. And the air conditioning in this mean you don't have to cool them up to 25 degrees or even more. When there is a forced airstream, then you can have them just in closets, in small racks, or some in the other parts. The second one in line is the N2200. It's a layer 3 standard, so it has some more routing environments in the switch itself. It's not static, or it's also supporting static, but it is also supporting RIP. Nice part of this one is that it's supporting different port speeds on the switch itself. So it's a multi-switch environment, and a multi-switch, well, you can say, oh, but the N1500 is also supporting 10, 100, and 1 gig on the ports. Yes, that's correct. But in this case, the N2200 supports 1 gig and 2.5 gig. So it can be already very good for the Wi-Fi 6 environments, because the new access points supporting 2.5 uplinks, 2 switches, and then you have already that in place. The nice part is that also the Power over Ethernet it's supporting is up to 60 watts. So you have some ports, 12 ports, that you can have in a 24 environment, that you have especially for 60 watt, and the other 12 for 30 watt. But also if you have only 30 watt or 50.4, it's also supporting. Second one on this bond is also, it has 2 lines. It's 24 ports and 48 ports, with or without the Power over Ethernet. And stacking is up to 12 pieces. And stacking will be used on the back side of the switch. When we're looking at the M1500, the stacking will be on the front side. So it's really depending on how the closets are, how deep they are, or what you would like to have. In this case, the M2200 will be stacked on the other side, and it is stacking based on 40 gig. So 20 gig up, 20 gig down, in total 160 of gig stacking that you have. The N1500 has only a 10 gig up and 10 gig down, so it's a 20 gig per that, and then you have only 80. The uplinks to the switches, to the core switches, for example, is based on 25 gig because it's already a multi-switch, so you have 1 gig and 2.5 gig, and that's part of that one. So what are the key features? Well, I think I told a lot of them already. It's 2.5 gig multi-gig on that one, uplinks of 25 gig. It's an already have a fast and the paternal power of Ethernet. So it's an easy to, when it's rebooting, the power starts early with delivering of the power of Ethernet on the ports. And that's easy because then the starting of the access points will be much quicker than it was before. Normally when the switch was powering up and the power of Ethernet was not available, then after the full switch was running up, then the access points could be also starting up. In this case, it will be much quicker of that one. So it is for the IoT environment, but also the access points and even the cameras and even the phones, it is a very easy and handy to use. The last one on the campus environment is the power switch N3200. This is a full layer 3 advanced switch. It's also a switch that is handy with a multi-gig access. And a multi-gig access is based on some of them 1, 2.5, 5, and 10 gig on the switches. So the RG45 ports, they are supporting 1, 2.5, 5, and 10 gig. The uplink ports of the switches, they are still based on 25 gig. We have two different ones. Two different flavors in the N3200s is the 1 gig platform, and we have the 10 gig platforms, which are supporting the multi-gig environments. The 1 gig platforms, they are based on 24 ports and 48 ports with or without power of Ethernet and standard 30 watt of power of Ethernet. This in compare with the 10 gig environments, with the multi-gigs, which are supporting 1, 2.5, 5, and 10 gig. You have also the capability to support up to 90 watts per port. The nice part of this one is that it has dual power supplies in the back. Standard, it will be delivered with one, and you have the capability to add on a second internally. In compare with the N1500, there is one power inside, and when you need a redundant power supply, you need add on a power unit as a second one in the rack itself. So then it's a dual height environment. Nice part of the N3200 is that it's supporting MAC-SEC, and that is something that is sometimes requested within the governments or in the hospitals, where some of them they need, oh yes, I would like to have MAC-SEC. Yes, we are supporting that on the 48 ports, not on the 24 ports, but really based only on the 48 ports. The definitions on that one, which I had, is based on the, well, I think the 24 ports and the 48 ports with the uplinks and the downlinks that you have based on the uplinks for 25 gig. Okay. Stacking is up to 12 members based on the backside with the QSFP 28 ports. So it's 100 gig that it's using for stacking. And it's also stacking on the, what I already said, the dual internal power supplies that you have on both sides. Okay. Some of the definitions that we have on the platforms. There is also 8 ports on that part, and that's a layer 3. So the N1108 which is a layer 2 environment, and this one is a layer 3 environment. Layer 3 is also based on the cooling, and that's a very nice part because it's the 8 ports, it's turned off when it's down the 25 Celsius, and it will be down. And the choose that you have on the 24 ports and the 48 ports on the I/O to PSU, or in some cases of them, they are the PSU to I/O. And that's a very nice one for the 48 ports that you have on that part. So this was the campus environment. Based on the campus environment, which can always be connected to a core switch, and the core switch can also be used in a data center. So in this case, the data centers that we have, two different flavors on that one. We are always talking about a spine and leaf environment, and the spine leaf environment is based on the spine is mainly the core of within the data center, and the leaves, they are the top of rack switches. The top of rack switches, most likely 2 per rack or 2 per environment, and those are connected directly to the spine. The leaf switches, we are using their VLT, and we are using a real spine leaf environment. Then the spines, we are not connected to each other, because then we have a full redundant and a full and a quick response on east to west traffic within the data center. So the first one in this line is the S4100 series. And I picked up one because that's a very nice one and a very useful and a high sale environment, is the S4112. It's in the F version or in the T version. The F version is based on the optics, and the T version is based on the RG45. These two are a half rack environment. So in one space, in one rack unit, you can put in 2 switches next to each other. There's a special sleeve for that one. And with that, you put in 2 switches next to each other. So you have redundant on one level. Instead of that you use 2 rack units, you have only 1 rack unit that you can use for the S4112. The S4100 series is based on 10 gig. That's just already what Wim was mentioning in the NVMe over IP. This series is not capable to support that. The second series, which I will explain after this slide, that one is special for the NVMe over IP, because that is in 25 gig environment. The environment for these switches for the S4112, well, you have them in 28 ports, or they are most likely it's 24 ports, but you have 4 ports extra that you can use based on extra optics or stuff like that. But still, you have your uplinks based on a 100 gig environment. This is what we call the entry-level data center switch, the 10 gig environment. For the medium environment, well, we start over to the 25 gig environment. So the S5200 series, which has a, well, I think in the same line as that the S4100 series has. It has two modules. Sorry, it has 1 module based on the 12 ports, because the 25 gig, there is no copper version of that, because there is no RG45 which are supporting 25 gig. So you will do everything based on the direct attached cables or the optics based on 25 gig, which are also supporting 10 gig. So the S5200 is also supporting 10 gig on the same ports, which are supporting 25 gig. Same as this one, the 5212 is half rack. You can see it here in the picture itself. That one, laser pointer. The top one, this is the size, the real size of the 5200, but also based on the S4100. So in one rack, you have 2 of those next to each other, which is easy to use for redundancy in a smaller environment itself. The other parts, for the bigger ones, 69 ports, or even the first one that we have on the 100 gig environment. I will speak later on the breakout ports based on the breakout cables itself, but also on the copper cables or the fiber cables that you can use with the different switches. Visual, you have them here. It's below, you have the 523200. It's 32 ports based on 100 gig. And then the top one is the 5269. You have 69 ports based on 25 gig for the larger environments. When we're starting a little bit higher, this one is upcoming new. It's already in our environment. It is the S54 environment.
504048.
It's always the announcement. The 5448F. It's a 48 ports of 100 gig environment, but it's also supporting on 25, 50, or 100 gig. And a special for the 50 gig. This one is it's a special one. If you have using the double density, that one is based on, and let me clear that very clearly, and I will speak that a little bit later on when I talk about the optics itself. Some of the optics, when it's a double density, they are supporting 2 times 50 instead of 100 gig. It's based on 4 times 25. In this case, this one will be supporting the double density 65 will be based on 2 times 50 when you can break that. That's something that I will explain a little bit later in the optics itself. Okay, low, there it is. So the benefits of this item, well, you can see it already. It's based on 100 gig. It's supporting 1 times 10 gigs, 25 gig, or 50 gig, and that is always based on the optics that is using. The 400 gig ports, so that's the QSFP 56, is supporting 8 times 100 gig, 8 times 25 gig, 8 times 50 gig, 2 times 40, 2 times and 4 times 400 gig or 200 gigs itself. The speed of the switch, I think that it's the most important one. Yes, it's a full rate switch that you can use based on the 60 terabyte switching capacity. So it's a non-blocking environment. And based on a non-blocking environment, well, when you have the uplinks based on 40 gig, you need also a spine switch which are supporting or can supporting the 400 gig ports itself. So in this case, the 9432, which has 32 ports of 400 gig. Within the large data centers where you have the capability for uplinks to your servers based on 50 or based on 100 gig or 25 gig, but then the uplinks to your spine based on 400 gig. When you have a high density, but also a high capacity and performance needed, this is the switch that you need to go for. Nice part of this one is that it also has, instead of 32 ports on 400 gig, you have also 128 ports based on breaking out to 10, 50, or 100 ports itself. So that's the nice part of that one. Well, what I already said, enterprise Web 2.0, so all the items where is the intensive use or need of compute and storage traffic itself. The 9664, that's also spine switch, and that's the it's coming in the second quarter of this of our fiscal year, so that is in the summertime frame, and it can support up to 64 ports of 400 gig. Well, based on all these items, I think that the matrix that I have on Nextly will be more important to know what you have, what you can do, and even what you can build based on the new parts. So the S41 X series, it's a 10 gig. The S5200, it's a 25 gig. The S5400, it's 100 gig. and the 49 and the 69, they are 400 gig itself. Capacity of the ports itself, what you see, it's 840 up to 12.8 terabytes. So it's really in line of the data center growth of today and tomorrow. Today, maybe 4100, tomorrow the 5200, when you're using the 25 gig based on our Power Store, Power Edge, Power Flex, but also on the VxRail environments. Yes, I think that the 25 gig will be more in place than the 10 gig. When you still have 10 gig, yes, you can still do that in that place. So based on these items, I will turn over to the optics and cables, because there are always, and I get always a lot of questions based on the optics and cables. Which are we using? Why can we use that one? And how it's implemented within the switches? Well, I think that I can help you with this part. First of all, the form factors. When you're looking at SFP plus or the SFP or the SFP 28, those all three, they have the same form factor. And the same form factor, it is based on the port itself. When you're looking at the QSFP environment, so QSFP plus, but also the QSFP 6528 double density, those are the a little bit wider slots that you can use for that one. Well, and in that case, when you're looking at the smaller optics, they are single lane. And what I mean with single lane, there is only one lane of traffic that it's in the optic itself. When you're looking at the QSFP, so 40 gig, they have, well, let me explain it as you have the road between Antwerp and Brussels. You have different lanes. Instead of that, you have the Brussels Steenweg between Antwerp and Brussels. So you have 4 lanes of traffic. So it's 4 times 25, or it's 4 times 10 gig. That is what you have. If you have 2 lanes, dual lane, then it will be, for example, the 50 gig. So that is based on the 25 gig, twice 25 gig. Or even when you're looking at the SFP double density, that is the SFP 56 double density, which is in a 100 gig port, and it's used for example, on the S5448. It has a different technology, so it will be based on 2 times 50 gig. When you compare that with 100 gig standard, you can have it based on 4 lanes, and that it will be 4 times 10 gig or 4 times 25 gig. So that is a difference between the breakouts. And even when you're looking at the 8 lanes, the 400 gigs, so it's 2 times 400, or it's 2 times 200, or it's 8 times 50, or it's 8 times. Those are the items that you can use on that part. So the formats that we know, and based on the cables itself, we all know the direct attach cables. So it's a point-to-point or even a point-to-multipoint. So that is a breakout cable. We have the AC, that's an active connection. The AOC, it's also an active connection for longer distance. Then we have the optics, that's the XCVR environment. So you need to think about the environment based on the MPO connections or the MTP connections or the PSM connections, and those are the items that we are know. So in this case, when you're looking at what are the announcements, so when we speak about an SFP, it's 1 gig. Talk about SFP plus, it's 10 gig. SFP 28, 25 gig, and so on. When you have in the whole line, you also can see it in the description. If it's a single one, it's a quad, it's a dual, or an octal pair of lanes. And that is very important to know, so that you know exactly how to break out or what can be break out into what. The different cables that we have, well, I think that's different, because when we're looking at the direct attach cables, it's a copper solution. So it's a real it's not a very bendable cable. Oh, you can bend it, but not in real 90 degrees. And that's something that you not should do with cables, but it's a little bit thicker. When you're looking at the active cables, they are a little bit thinner. And with the thinner, you can use it easier for longer distance. A longer distance, so you can even bend it much better and use it between different racks. And then you have the active optical cable, and it's up to, well, say it 70 meters, 50 meters. So you have a bigger distance that you can move out. The direct attach cable, it's up to 7 meters. The active copper is up to 15 meters. So those are the difference between the items itself. Looking at the XCVR options, so the multi-mode environments, when you're looking at the MPO cables, I think it's very important to know those are the items where you can also break out into environments for 4x10 or 4x25, or really depends on what you have. Based on the names between the items, so when we're talking about an SFP, and it's an SFP SR or USR or an ESR or an LR, stuff like that, I think you already know it's based on the distance. Ultra short, short range, extended short range, or even BD, bidirectional, but also SM and the distance or the shorter range that you have, but also the long reach on these short items. Long reach is most likely between two data centers, between the 1 kilometer and 40. So that's something that you can use, or 2 kilometers, stuff like that. There you're going to use a single mode fiber because that's the best way to extend on that part. When you're looking at the breakout cables, which can be used within the MPO or the MTP, it will be based on different cables. So the MPO 12, it's a smart one that can put in the 400 gig MPO QSFP, or the SFP 65. Then you can break out it to an LC connection. Or between racks, you can use MPO to MPO, or 2 times to break out to different switches. Most likely when you have a breakout for 2 times 200 gig to 2 different switches, or you have 200 gig to 2 different switches based on 100 gig. And those are the different ones that you can use on that part. Most likely what you have within the rack itself is the color difference. You can use any color for the patch cables, but it is very useful to use the color coding that is within the standards. And when we talk about the standards, yes, we have different colors, but I see also some gray cables or blue cables or purple cables. That is something that you can choose it by yourself. But when you see this line, these are the most used colors for those items which we have in the class itself. So single mode fiber, yellow. Multi-mode fiber on the OM5. So that's the new standard that is coming up. Aqua, some kind of blue. It's used for OM3 and OM4. Orange, the most old version that we have, is used for OM1 and OM2. Well, OM1 and OM2, they are based on the multi-mode fibers environment. Single mode fiber, it's the yellow one. So within the closet, I think you can see which you are better to use or how to use it itself. When all these items are a little bit overwhelming and the information that I said, I think, well, we have some of the reference guidelines, how to use it, but also the very ask questions. It's there. So These are the two lines that you can use to enter the data sheets or the pages within Dell environments in on the Dell pages. Decks will be shared, so that's something that's always happening, and that's always very good for you. And in this case, the one that I have, and that's already mentioned by Wim. Yes, keep in mind, we hope that we get this week or next week the invitations for the sessions. 2 sessions for sales in March, 2 sessions for technical also in March, and very important to register by sending an email to Wim, so that he knows how many people we can expect and how many people they are thinking about the NVMe environment. So this is really the NVMe over IP, TCP, what you would like to have, and that's the knowledge that you would like to go. And I would like to go back to Carl. Carl, it's up to you now.
Thank you very much, Danny. Thank you very much, Wim. I will take over the screen. I did not see questions in the questions and answers. If you do have questions, please do not hesitate to place them there. I would like to take the opportunity to present our division, so the Dell Advanced Solutions or Dell Enterprise division at Tech Data. Because I see a lot of numbers I don't know, and of course a lot of names which are familiar to me. So first of all, understand that we are here to first of all explain or convince partners that Dell Technologies is the #1 infrastructure vendor. Of course, this is in our both benefits. We have a very long relationship with EMC, with Legato, even before that, and then Dell. So we have a lot of expertise at home or at Tech Data, which we can make available to you. And with this expertise, what we want to do is make sure that the partners who team with us in a project and deliver Dell Technology solutions, that we are putting them in the best place to win the deal. This is our organization. So at the left, you see a gray zone. At the right, you see a, how do you say it, rose zone. And this is the division between enterprise products at the left and client products at the right. But as you can see, we have an extended team of sales, pre-sales people. Oh, I see that Hertie is still there on the slide, but I think everybody knows that Hertie left the company. She will be replaced very soon. So we have quite some people who can help you in sales and pre-sales. The best way to contact us is with the email below, dellemc@techdata.be. We have quite some experience, as I said, due to the years of collaboration with Legato, EMC, and Dell Technologies. We have sales accreditation, we have technical accreditation or certification. Most of you will know Tom Lambrechts and Koen Oprens. They are certified to do installations on a lot of Dell EMC or Dell Technologies storage solutions, like PowerStore and VxRail, for instance, to name 2, or Data Domain, to name 3. We also are here or try to find different tools that we can make available for our partners, which can help you. We have some demo equipment available. We just launched a new dedicated website on smart value bundles. So those are pre-configured configurations, basic configurations for server and storage solutions at an attractive price. We have a video vault. It's a website where you can find a number of videos, on technologies and processes. We have PowerQuote, which is integrated in the Tech Data InTouch web shop, let me call it that way, and which allow you to configure a PowerEdge server and also place this configuration through InTouch for equipment we have available in stock. You have the Dell EMC virtual rack. I think that Danny showed something similar for networking, but this is indeed a virtual rack, web-based application where you can look and feel and understand the specifications of different technologies, Dell Technologies, and then Live Optics. Finally, the tool which you can use to audit or visualize the environment of customer IT. If you want to have more information on those or other things, please do not hesitate to contact us. Those are the skills of Koen and Tom. As said, they are involved in pre-sales projects, but you can also call up to Koen and Tom if you need resources for implementation and deployment. Which brings me to the end. Thank you very much again, the speakers, to helping us in this presentation. Thank you to all our partners to participate in this session. We'll quickly have a look at the questions and answers. Stop sharing. I do not see that there were any questions. So with this, it only rests me to close this call. I have one small question maybe for some attendants. As when indicated in the past, we've sent out a lunchbox to the first 50 registrations for this webinar. If you could use the questions and answer box, but for the people who received the lunchbox, can you give me a sign in the questions and answer box, please? I see some. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's good. Okay. Very good. Very good. Bon appétit, smakelijk, and hope to see you in the next session. Thank you very much for attending. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. See you later. Bye-bye.